So, James, they were literally breaking stuff in the White House today.
Yeah, the Ohio college football team were in the White House receiving their trophy.
Yes, and a former senator from Ohio, now vice president, J.D. Vance, he couldn't resist. He had to pick up the trophy.
And what happened?
Well, it broke in two. He picked it up and the bottom fell off it. Awkward, awkward, awkward.
Yeah, he drops a clanger everywhere he goes, that man. Why should the college boys escape? I'm James Matthews.
I'm Mark Stone.
And this is day 86 of Trump 100. But El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, is in D.C. talking deportations and million-dollar deals.
And President Trump says 3 people are to blame for the war in Ukraine, but insists still that he is the only man to end it.
So, Mark, you've spent the day down at the White House covering the visit of the world's coolest dictator.
Yes, and to be clear, that is his description, not ours. He, of course, is El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele, who has been meeting Donald Trump today. 2 men who I think there is no question, they admire one another. There is a sort of symbiotic relationship between the 2 of them, and it was on full display in the Oval Office today.
I want to thank you for the great job you're doing. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to be here.
Although, did you notice what President Bukele was wearing?
He was not wearing a shirt and tie. I think he had a suit on, but it was the kind of...
Cool suit.
Which is what? Jacket, but no shirt and tie.
T-shirt.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And nobody picked him up on it.
Why are we talking about this? Well, because no one did pick him up on it. And when another president was in the Oval Office not all that long ago, also not wearing a suit, but indeed... not wearing a shirt and tie or suit, wearing combat gear instead, one Volodymyr Zelensky. He got ridiculed. Not today, though.
Yeah. If you're a friend of the president, you can wear what you want, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. He is a close ally of Donald Trump, especially when it comes to all things immigration. Because if we take a step back and look at Trump's, what is it? It is nearly 100 days now, James, isn't it?
We're guessing that. 86 indeed.
One issue where Trump has had material success is immigration. You can argue, and we will, and we have, and many are, about the legality of his policies, which have resulted in some pretty impressive immigration numbers. It is a fact that immigration has gone down massively on the southern border. And one man he can thank for that is El Salvador's leader, because El Salvador has done a deal, it's all about deals, has done a deal with the Americans, which has allowed them, the US that is, to deport a large number of foreigners who are here illegally, who the Americans say are gang members. They've not been through any judicial process. Nevertheless, they have been deported into El Salvador's prisons. And that's one thing that they were discussing today.
Yeah, Bukele talked about building more prisons, and Trump suggested the US would help him pay for it. That works for Bukele. The current rate is $20,000 per prisoner per year. That recent batch of deportees is worth around $6 million to El Salvador. Expect that to increase on the back of Trump's comments today in the Oval Office. He said homegrown criminals could be sent to prison in El Salvador, that his Attorney General was looking into the legality of making that happen. That, of course, would be a whole new level of controversy, US citizens being sent to foreign jails. It seems to be, however, on the agenda. It would be good financially for El Salvador's president. There's also the political currency, of course, the stature and opportunity that comes with being feted by the US president. The relationship clearly works for both men.
Yeah, it does. 2 things, 2 sort of separate issues going on here, but clearly linked. The first is the determination that Trump has to deport people, to be seen to deport people who are here illegally, aliens as they are tagged. It was a key part of his campaign that he was going to do this, and so it visually needed to be seen to be done. And the images are stark indeed, whether they are a good thing for you or whether they shake you to your core. These images of people being deported on planes into this notorious jail in El Salvador, it is having an impact on the numbers of people choosing to come to the United States, and clearly very legally questionable. because they have not gone through any judicial process. But he is not only doubling down on that, beyond that, suggesting that actually he could outsource America's own prison system by sending Americans who have committed the most serious crimes to other jails as well. The background, of course, is that Bukele has turned his own country around, which is why Trump admires him. Not all that long ago, 2020, 2021, El Salvador was the most dangerous country in the world. Now it is said to be the safest country in the Western Hemisphere, but it's come at a cost. Human Rights Watch says that Bukele's administration has detained around 85,000 individuals since about 2022, and yet only 1,000 of those 85,000 have been convicted of any crimes, clearly raising concerns about wrongful imprisonments.
Yeah, it's he has an 80% popularity rating, Bukele. That doesn't surprise me, Mark, because keen listeners to the podcast will know that I play, when my hip's not rusty, for an over-40s El Salvador Sunday amateur team. And I have to tell you, there's a few criminals amongst that lot, but that's only the square passing. But, they tell me about this guy and they say, look, our country is safer. We were the murder capital of the world, not anymore. So, I suppose it's an assessment more easily reached when you're this distance away from the notorious windowless jail. But, I see why the guy is popular, and I hear it from El Salvadorians that I know. And we'll come back to El Salvador and President Bukele in a bit. But let's talk Ukraine, because in that same Oval Office gathering, there were questions from the media and questions about Ukraine. Trump, in his answers, he pointed the finger at 3 people he said were responsible for the deaths of millions.
That's a war that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Trump's facing pressure from outside the US and, of course, from within. Poland's foreign minister, he said that Moscow is mocking Trump following the Russian strike at the weekend. And Republicans in Congress, they're not happy. Trump ally, Senator Lindsey Graham, he said over the weekend that Putin and peace apparently do not fit in the same sentence. He called on the president to step up pressure on the Kremlin by increasing sanctions. Trump, of course, has threatened to increase sanctions, but he hasn't yet followed through.
Yeah, Trump said that he'd been told that the Russians had made a mistake in the strike over the weekend on Sumy. Even before the attack, though, Trump has shown, I think, increasing signs of exasperation at the slow progress of negotiations. Remember, he said it could be done in a day, that he would find peace. He hasn't managed to. I think when the rubber hit the road, it became increasingly clear that there's a reason this war has been so hard to end. And he said that he is pissed off with Putin's approach to the ceasefire. Negotiations still ongoing. We know, we were talking over the weekend about the negotiations, the talks between Steve Witkoff, Trump's point man on everything, it seems. He was in St. Petersburg with the person who he now calls his friend, Vladimir Putin. That was at the end of last week, and then we saw this incredibly difficult weekend for the people of Ukraine. So where is this going to go? I think it's clear that Trump is discovering now that it's a very, very hard nut to crack.
Okay, back to El Salvador, Mark, because there was an update on a case we've been following of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. In the Oval Office today, President Bukele of El Salvador, he told reporters he wouldn't return Garcia to the United States, despite the Trump administration previously admitting that he was wrongfully deported. It's worth reminding people that this man has never been convicted. His difficulty is that an anonymous informant said that he was a member of the gang MS-13. But a judge since ruled that he couldn't be returned to El Salvador. Despite that, he is where he is in that prison.
Yeah, the Supreme Court has also called his removal illegal and directed the Trump administration to, quote, facilitate his return. But Trump and his team have pushed back, saying that they do not want him back. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defending his boss's decision.
The foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
What struck me today, listening to Marco Rubio and to the El Salvador president in the Oval Office, that they are all saying, "Not my problem, Governor. It's, what are we going to do about it?" They're all washing their hands of this case, which I think is going to quickly become, or maybe already has become, a test case for what happens next. I mean, we have the U.S. Supreme Court saying that this guy should not have been deported. His return needs to be facilitated. The problem we've got is that he is, unlike many of the other people sent to El Salvador who were from Venezuela, he's actually from El Salvador. So it makes it the whole thing a lot more complicated.
Yeah, the story's stuck in semantics. This word facilitate, that has given the government wriggle room. The notion that means anything other than bring this guy back to the United States is what it turns on now. A district court is actually due to give a view on that shortly, which should clarify things, should mean progress. But of course, that will depend on the White House recognizing that court's authority and its ruling. It will have to shift from where it is now. This business of saying that it's El Salvador's call and El Salvador saying that it simply won't happen. It's about the power of government on immigration over the power of the courts. It's a litmus test, as you say, for the rule of law and what many see as an abuse of human rights. Those same people point out that the man deported is entitled to the same due process, a due process he has not had, but the same due process as Donald Trump was afforded, of course, in a number of criminal courts.
You might think that if the Trump administration was absolutely convinced that this guy is a wrong-un, is a member of a gang, that they would, because it's now in their gift, say to Bukele, to the president of El Salvador, okay, let's have him back. We'll bring him back to America because we admit there was an administrative error in sending him. We will put him through the court process. We'll find him guilty, and then we will kick him out properly. That might be one way to do it, but maybe they just don't trust the so-called liberal judges who might get him off. But it's certainly causing a stink here. The Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer tweeting in the last few moments, "Due process and the rule of law are cornerstones of American society for citizens and non-citizens alike. And not to follow that is dangerous and outrageous. A threat to one is a threat to all. He should be returned to the United States immediately." So says Chuck Schumer. Now, James, before we go, did you see that Trump's medical report was published on Sunday? Remember, it was late last week. He went to the Walter Reed Medical Center for his checkup.
Yep, overweight, but not obese.
Yes, he is in excellent health, overweight but not obese. The president's quote, "Joints and muscles have a full range of motion."
Yeah, and they pointed to his golf, didn't they? They credited his good health to an active lifestyle, including, quote, frequent victories in golf events. No mention of his dancing to the YMCA.
No, surely his heavy schedule on the campaign trail and all that dancing must have got
Not the picture of health, if you ask me.
Yeah, well.
But of course, the cognitive test came up.
Yeah, it did. Really interesting. Remember, for context, President Biden in his last medical did not have a cognitive test as part of that medical. And when asked why, Biden's press secretary said he takes a cognitive test every day. Rigor is part of his job. Trump, though, well, he had one and scored highly.
Yeah, 30 out of 30, which they tell me is a normal score, but he reckons it's beyond that, yeah.
He is the best ever, apparently. It is.
Well, I suppose it can get any better.
To be factually, it is the best score you can get, 30 out of 30. But he claimed in the Oval Office that the doctor had said he'd never seen anything like it. In fact, anything above 25 in this cognitive test is considered normal. To get 30 out of 30 is clearly very good. But he took one. Biden did not.
Yeah, I liked his line on Air Force One. Did you see that coming back from Florida?
Go on.
He said he was found to have a good heart and a good soul, a very good soul. There you go. That's the medical test we all need.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, that is it for day 86 of Trump 100. But as always, if you have any questions, you can email us. The usual address, trump100@sky.uk, and we will do our best to answer them at the weekend.
Yes, please do send them in. We appreciate them all. And remember, if you're not already, you can follow the podcast for free wherever you usually listen, so you never miss an episode.
We'll be back tomorrow for day 87. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.